Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we are doing part two of our two-part, hopefully, series of tier ranking every single Survivor runner-up except one. We're skipping one, who's going to come today in the Philippines. We are joined today by Curly Daddy 101, and Peridiam is joining us again for part two. Thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready
Yeah.
to see who we disagree with and agree with on these S and A tiers. A lot of I'm looking at the list ahead, as everyone can see on the screen. We have some people coming up that I think might teeter down S and A tier line. So I'm interested to see where we
Uh-huh.
debate them. I was telling for those watching, I was telling Peridiam and Gideon that I have one S tier coming into this. I think Peridiam might have had three, you said, and maybe one for Gideon. So
I
Maybe.
no, I had two or three. I was on the fence about
Okay.
one, but I know I have two. So I feel like me and Peridiam are more thinking on the same wavelength for this episode. But is it true,
Yeah.
Peridiam, that you wanted to come back on for part two because you were scared for me and Adam's life against the Reddit cesspool that we were about to?
I mean, yeah. There's a lot to disagree with. I gotta keep you guys in check a little bit. I don't want you guys to get in trouble too much.
yeah.
I've watched the previous tier rankings. I've seen your opinions. I know what's up. So, yeah.
We sometimes get ourselves in trouble for sure. So
What's crazy is normally me and Gideon are in the opposite position. I'm usually the one that gives like too much credit and like maybe overrates players and has too many SNAs. And I feel like Gideon is the more harsher when it comes to grading players and seasons. I don't know.
I have like there's certain players in my head, and like we saw it last episode with Amanda, where I'm just like, I won't budge. Like I just think you suck. Like, and some people don't like that, but I don't care. I'm me, and nobody else is me. So deal with it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So yeah, for those watching, if you haven't seen part one, I'd recommend maybe watching that one first, just so you can kind of have an idea of like what our criteria is. We're going to try to each give our grade, our letter for these players, and try to come up with some sort of average. I'm assuming there's not going to be anyone where it's like S, and then like one of us has an F. I'm assuming they're going to be relatively around the same position.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for those who haven't seen part one, where we did, I guess it would be Wigglesworth up until Parvati. Parvati, yes. So seasons 1 to 20. Today we're doing seasons 20 with Chase Rice in Nicaragua, all the way to Natalie Anderson, came in second place, sort of, in Winners at War. That should be an interesting one as well.
Oh yeah.
Cool. You guys ready to get into it with the Mr. Country Music Star himself?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, man. I just wanted to go ahead and rate him an S because of his music. It's so amazing and spectacular.
Do you listen to Chase Rice? I don't think I've ever listened to Chase Rice.
I've never listened to Chase Rice. The only thing I've seen about Chase Rice as far as country music goes is like he got in trouble or something.
Did he? Oh, I didn't even know that. I think I've watched him once, ironically, just because on the Survivor subreddit. But I don't know a single thing about him other than he's got. Oh, I know his reunion. He did the reunion song. I don't remember it, but they gave him a guitar and he started playing at the reunion of Nicaragua.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He got in trouble because like he did no social distancing, mask free, like last March. So that's why he got in trouble.
Okay, so at the beginning of the whole COVID
at the beginning of quarantine, he was like,
I wonder if he learned since then or not. I don't know.
He said no apologies, but he'll follow the law next time. That was his quote.
Alrighty.
I had to check because I completely was drawing a blank on just how close Chase did come to winning. He only lost by one vote. It was 5-4, which back in the old school Survivor, especially like his first couple seasons, if you lost by one vote, I could still see the argument for calling you like a bad player, like we did with. Obviously, we had Clay as an F, even though I love Clay. it's a little different with new school. I feel like if you only lose by 1 or 2 votes, it's a little bit harder to have an argument that you, are an F or a D. For me, for that reason, for him only losing by 1 vote, I mean, I'd probably put him in C. I can't imagine you guys would put him any higher than C. I'm assuming you guys are thinking C, D range.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking C, D range. And I wanted to ask Peridiam's opinion on this because he just recently covered this in a video last week. But did he get 4 votes because Sash couldn't receive votes?
Oh. Did Chase get the 4 votes? No, I don't think so.
Or do you think the 4 votes were deserved? He would have got them anyways, even if Sash didn't.
It's interesting because this whole Sash. There's another thing there's another layer to this final tribal council that doesn't relate to the whole Sash stuff with Sash getting 0 votes and the conspiracy theory around it, which I think is totally. I think the accusations are real. I think the actual producer interference is totally bogus, like doesn't exist. If you know what I'm talking about, I guess you go check out my video from last week. Sash getting 0 votes is most likely because he just wasn't that likable. He kind of had this like snake oil salesman, used car salesman vibe to him, a little bit slimy.
Yeah. Okay.
Sitting next to Fabio or Chase, I think he's just not going to get votes from. But what I did hear, and I've heard this from reputable sources about this final 3, is that the vote was actually supposed to be 7-2. And it's intentionally 5-4, but the 2 people who switched their votes were sort of throwing votes to help Chase out a little. And I don't know if this is 100%. It is a little hearsay, but I've heard this from people who are in the know, who are actually at that reunion. And if you go back and you watch the Nicaragua reunion, listen for what happens after Chase gets the 3rd vote reveal to the audience. The audience reaction, they thought that Chase. Everyone in the audience, the cast, all knew the vote was 7-2. Fabio had it locked up. So when it hit the 3rd vote for Chase, everyone was like, wait, what? And then he gets the 4th vote, and you're like, and Fabio's reaction is like, he goes from like, to being like, what's going on, guys? Like, it's not 7-2. So I found that pretty interesting. Apparently, I've always held the belief that Chase was underrated, and that he actually, 2 of Fabio's votes are from Nyanka and Kelly, who quit the game, who I think today wouldn't be on the jury. He wouldn't have those 2 votes. Yeah. So it's possible Chase actually would win by modern rules because they set the standard after Nyanka and Kelly. If you quit on the jury, you don't get to be on the jury unless there's the edge. So I'm like, is Chase one of those weird cases where maybe he should have been the winner? But then I found out 2 of the votes probably weren't supposed to be for him anyway, which just goes, it's like a tennis match of deserving between Fabio and ultimately, I would be fine with putting him at C. I think I probably would have him around C or even B possibly for his ability to like weave between the alliances and manage to keep people on his side, I guess. Like if B is the middle tier, I think he's about there for the middle. I don't think he's below average. I don't know how likable or charming he is to win the jury over, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I put him at.
Do you guys think Chase could ever win?
He could if he was a bit more likable. If he was a bit more it's like Peridiam said. It's just like I do think he's an average player on face surface, but just because he wasn't as likable as Fabio, I probably put him down in C.
Right. I mean, I'm fine with either.
C leaning B for me.
I really don't. Yeah. If you guys both had him in C, I'll concede that. I don't really care that much about Chase. Stick him in C tier.
I don't care much about that entire season, to be honest. So,
yeah.
Okay, so moving on to Redemption Island, Phillip.
Oh
boy!
S.
All right, so we're
S tier. S.
I have an opinion on Phillip. I have an opinion.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I want to hear this one.
But I want to hear what Gideon has to say first, because besides Marquesas, this is probably the season that we
love the most.
Well, we disagree on the most.
Oh
right,
my God.
He likes Redemption Island, right? You do like it.
I love Redemption Island. Okay,
and you love Phillip Shepard.
So we're either gonna
now. if we were ranking this based off a character, Phillip's S. But Adam, I am an idiot, but I'm not completely an idiot. I do realize that Phillip is like the goatiest of the goats, and was dragged to the end by Boston Rob. So if we are ranking this based off of how good of a player these people are, not how awesome they are, because if it's how awesome they are, then Phillip's an S. Then I have to give Phillip a C.
Okay.
But I love him.
Yeah, I put him as D as well. If that's the lowest it gets. And it's nothing personal, obviously. I don't know these people. I've seen Phillip in interviews. He seems like a decent guy. I don't know him too much beyond the show. But, like, yeah, man, his whole gameplay is just he's so socially ostracizing everybody. He blames the jury for not getting to know him, but it's like, so much of his gameplay is backwards and unintuitive, and it's like what not to do to succeed in any given season. It works because he had a returning player who noticed right away, wait a minute, this guy is not a threat. He has no social capital, and nobody's going to vote for him, and that's what you want in a finalist sitting next to you. He literally turns to Boston Bob, at the beginning of the final tribal, and his opening jury speech, he says, "Thank you, Rob, for not voting me out." It's like, oh man, they were willing to give Phillip the benefit of the doubt by thinking maybe he'll pull off the mask and be a completely different player by the end. He put this all in as an act, and it's not. I don't think it was an act. Maybe slightly exaggerated for the cameras, but. At the end of the day, like, that's Survivor. You're in front of cameras, and I just don't see how this is better than a D. But yeah.
Hey, it's let me say why he's C. Number one, he's fun.
Yeah, fair play. That makes sense.
Number two, maybe he's D.
I mean, I wonder if his Caramon game is like slightly.
His Caramon game is awesome. He might have been winning the game when he got voted out. I don't know.
I've always wondered, if Phillip doesn't get targeted, because I think the three amigos made the wrong move there. If he doesn't get targeted, let's say he manages to survive. If he gets to the final three, maybe with say Dawn and Sherry or something, is Phillip in the position to win?
Phillip's my favorite player.
Yes.
Phillip's probably my favorite player besides Coach. And if that doesn't tell you what kind of a person I am, I don't know what does. It just feels like a sin to put him on the same level as the other Ds. But I know we have to. I know we have to because we're ranking players. But
you said your two favorites are Phillip and Coach?
Yeah.
Oh, well, speak of the devil. That's who we're talking about next.
I know. And this is good. No, I'm more strong of an opinion towards Coach than I do Phillip. So I'm okay with a D. Honestly, I understand why.
Yeah. So I was saving my opinion for last because you might find it interesting. But so when I was a fan watching the show, like if I would have done this, what we're doing right now, right after watching it, I would probably be like, oh, of course, Phillip is like the D of all Ds. Because based on what the edit gives you, he was dragged to the end, he was unsociable, he did horrible in challenges. Didn't he sit out in Immunity Challenge? The underwater challenge?
Yeah, he did, yes.
He sit out. Okay. He was the first survivor to sit out individual immunity challenge.
Did he sit out?
Oh, he did. But that was a personal thing. Did he sit out
or did he just stand there because he said he was afraid of drowning?
I think he sat out.
Okay.
He sat out. Okay. Because of drowning. It's something that happened when he was a kid or something.
I don't blame him for that. I don't blame him.
But what I've learned, and I hate to be the guy to come in and be like, well, here's something you guys don't know, but what I have learned from Phillip himself and a few other people that played that season was there was two different groups of people that season. There was the group that had no idea what was going on. They were recruits that just had no idea what was happening. They just kind of went along with everything. And then there was the group who was like, Rob's going to win and there's nothing we can do about it. Phillip was in the latter. According to him, he knew from day one just the way that Rob would talk with production and he would know all the cameraman's names and he would talk to Jeff like they were best friends. And he knew Rob was going to win the game. and which he did. And what Phillip did was he said, "Okay, I'm not going to win, and there's nothing I can do to win. So I am going to try to place second because second place gets what, like 200,000 or 150?
Oh yeah, 100K.
Do they
100K.
still? Was that still in effect at season 23?
Yeah.
20. Yeah.
22. Yeah. So he's like, okay, I'm not going to win, so I'm not even going to try to win because if I try to win, I'm going to be knocked out. I'm going to be eliminated, like Matt or like I guess pretty much all the Zapateras that tried hard to get Rob out. Phillip was like, I'm not going to win. Let me try to get second place. And how do you try to get second place? You team up with Rob. You make everyone mad at you and become a very unsociable guy so they'll be like, oh, I'm going to take that guy to the end because I know I can beat him. So if he was trying, if you come on the show and you want to play second, to me, Phillip in Redemption Island is like the ultimate blueprint for how to play second. Latch yourself on as the lackey, as the right-hand man to the guy who is probably going to win.
Yeah. Okay.
The question is are we tier ranking that, or are we tier ranking, how close they came? How good are they as a runner-up?
How good of a
came
player
to?
they are. That's what we're ranking. And congratulations, Adam. I can't believe that while we are still ranking runner-ups, you still find a way to harp on Boston Rob's win in Redemption Island.
That's what this is.
It's amazing.
This has nothing to do with Phillip.
I know. This is what you do. I know you too well. Every single time you get just a little inkling of a chance, you have to rag on Boston Rob's game. Just tell it like it is. Hindsight's 20/20 for Phillip. Of course he's going to say that now because he looked like an idiot. But he played a terrible game.
A C tier game.
I just like his personality. If we're ranking what kind of a player he is, yeah, it's D.
So my pick is I can't fathom putting Phillip's game in Redemption Island as obviously an S or an A. I think a B would be way too much of a stretch, but I would definitely be cool putting him as a C. But if you guys are both saying D, I'm cool with putting him.
All right, you guys are crazy.
He's C.
I don't look,
D
Adam.
I will say,
I this is me not being stupid for once. Like, obviously, I want to put him at a C, and I said C because I thought you guys were gonna say D. But no, it's a D. If you're going to take my place for being stupid today, then it's a D.
I'll put him D.
I think that even if that was the case, which maybe I would cast a little doubt, I don't know for sure. I mean, I understand taking players' words at face value. It's coming from a primary source, which is a good start for like getting more information from behind the scenes. I do generally try to trust when a player tells me stuff, like when Danny says like, oh, I didn't tell the cameramen behind the scenes what I was doing. It's like, okay, but there's no way to corroborate that because there's no footage. So it's hopefully the truth, but it's a good way to make you look good because it was like, hey, all this great stuff was happening, you just never saw it. Same thing.
I hope
so
that
like,
one's the truth. And
it's like it sounds like
a couple times.
I know Adam thinks that's true because he says it every 5 seconds.
And it's like that's the tricky thing. The same case with conspiracy theories. It's like I reached out to numerous players asking for their firsthand account, and I got some stories from people. But at the same time, I'm like, until I fully see it, it's hard to fully confirm or deny. And I do generally like to believe that they're telling me the truth. And I will trust them unless maybe there's reasons why. Like say Phillip Shepherd threw the challenge in Caramon when he probably didn't throw that challenge. That if you guys remember that episode where he with the running in the circle, and it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. For me, it's hard, and I don't think it's a wild assertion to say it's difficult to fully trust Phillip's theory. And even if it's the truth, the strategy of playing to lose is not a good strategy. So even if it's like the cards were stacked against me, I never was going to win. So he technically won by losing. I'm like, I don't know how to even make sense of that in terms of relating it, other than to say like, well, you played to get second place, which is, I guess, good in its of getting a second place finish. But we're looking at you tried to win, and that strategy was never going to work, I think. Or maybe he should have been more. I don't know. Like, why didn't he talk about it more in the confessional? Or maybe he says the editing wouldn't show that. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have him at D based on what we saw on the camera. So
Yeah, based on what we saw, to me, it's an obvious D for Phillip. So
yeah.
I'm
Okay.
definitely cool putting him in.
Glad,
And there's a
glad
this is gonna come up down the line with another player that relates to the video I made today, where I talked about worst final tribal council performances by people who could have won the game had they done better. There's one glaring omission that I believe I really didn't know if I should put them in the video or not. We'll
Okay.
talk about them when we get to it, but yeah, it's a case of like we didn't see it, so it's hard to grade and compare that to all these other players who I have easily confirmable footage. This is not good versus somebody who's got no footage of this theory. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're talking about Will from Worlds Apart, but we'll get there when we cross that bridge. That was a joke.
no, I wasn't. Yeah, I was like, I'm not talking about Will.
Moving on to Coach. I have a question for you guys going into this one. I'm always curious to ask people this. If Coach does not vote for Brandon out, it's obviously him being kind of the swing vote with Brandon, do you think Coach would have won South Pacific if he had not voted Brandon out?
And voted out.
Who's he voted out? Are you talking about the final 5 of that
Who would he have
episode?
voted out instead?
It would have been
Sophie.
Sophie.
Would have been Sophie.
Then yes. Yeah, yes,
Sophie.
he would have.
So what happens is Sophie goes, Ozzy comes back. They probably vote Rick out because Ozzy wins immunity.
Actually,
but then
does
Ozzy? Sophie's not there to beat Ozzy at the final 4.
Yeah.
So let's say yes for
Yeah.
Ozzy winning.
Ozzy might be winning that if that's the case.
Well, then yeah, Ozzy would win, and also, other than Ozzy, from what at least I've heard, and I guess Adam's heard, because I think I heard this from Adam, is that Brandon was winning the game.
Yeah, I've heard he was a big jury threat. I had heard he was a jury threat.
Yeah, I know the edit might not have made it look like that, but I mean, yeah,
a lot of the jury sympathized and like
with
it was blown out of proportion from the edit. But again, that's like maybe a Phillip Shepard issue. Like
I feel like
I don't know.
I feel like I could see through it a little bit though.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask with Coach is, I think it's clear he did a pretty good job, and then maybe made some questionable moves towards the end. But the question for me is, were those questionable moves at the end the difference between him winning and being second place?
I think the difference was the tribal. I think he choked the tribal. And this is the I always use Coach as an example of what not to do at the tribal council. In New School Survivor especially, you can't just pull a Chris Daughtry and apologize for every single thing that you do. Like this is New School Survivor. People appreciate the game on the jury, and you're supposed to own your game.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
I would agree. I think that Coach loses at the final tribal, which is pretty impressive because a lot of these second placers lose, I think, way before final tribal. So for Coach, I will say I have Coach. I put him in A tier.
Yeah, me too.
I'm willing to put him in A tier mostly because I think that he had a kind of like a Boston Rob-esque control of this season. Not 100% as good as Boston Rob. I don't think. I think Sophie highlights this a lot when she talks about how Coach was the figurehead. He was the mascot for this group, but really her and Albert were pulling the strings and making the calls and swaying Coach in the direction. Coach got a lot of credit, and hey, maybe that's to Coach's credit. Like, hey, good for him. But he bombs that final tribal. He does a terrible job.
Yeah.
He doesn't own it. He apologizes profusely over and over and over. And like, they're not looking for the apologies. They're looking for you to like own your shit and like explain like the justification, the logic. He just apologized. He's like, I'm sorry, man. You should be in this final 3. Sorry, Brandon. You should be in this final 3. Ozzy, you should be here. And it's like, nobody wants to hear that sitting from the jury. It's like, well, then why am I not there? Like, screw you, dude.
Exactly.
But I think up to that point, if he could if he could go back and like switch his final tribal performance, which I've heard the jurors say they were interested and willing to vote for him, he could have won. He lost jury votes, and I don't know. I think that most of Coach's game is pretty good in South Pacific up until the very end.
Yeah, and this is like the least my least favorite version of Coach, just because he's actually trying to win. But I mean, like he was getting a winner's edit up to Final Tribal, and then just all of a sudden it just comes crashing down.
Yeah, I thought he was winning. I didn't see Sophie.
Yeah, it was crazy. I do not care what Sophie says. It's like you can say all day, Sophie, that you knew he was going to choke the Final Tribal, but if he didn't, like that's a big assumption to make. I mean, I don't know.
It's really impressive that even with that poor of a Final Tribal, that he still managed to get a third of the jury.
I think it says something about his game.
Yeah,
I think it said he stood a shot. Like he got 3 votes in spite of it, and I said it was the second worst from a player who could have won. Spoilers, but
yeah.
Has your number one come up yet?
Yeah, it was Amanda.
Oh, okay.
It was like an accumulation of 2 seasons back to back where she stood a decent chance.
Adam, you agree with A?
I'd Coach at A.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So,
okay.
No, we're all simultaneous.
I thought it might be too high with him, but I guess not.
No, I mean, I think we can all recognize that he played a great game.
I would say A leaning more towards B than it would be towards S.
Yeah,
but
I would say the same.
I think he's A leaning A. I think it's pretty A.
A leaning A.
Yeah.
He's in the A.
All right. Going to one world, we have Sabrina, who, as great of a win as Kim had, she did manage to not get 2 of the votes, both of which went to Sabrina. I think Sabrina had a pretty underrated game that's a bit overshadowed with Kim's dominant game. Sabrina is one of those players I'd love to see back if they did like a runners-up season, which I don't think they will because they've used so many runner-ups in Second Chance and All-Stars and whatnot. I think Sabrina would be a lot if they did that. Personally, I'd maybe say a C for Sabrina. I think there was a couple moments that the edit showed where she kind of unnecessarily got on some people's bad side. I think, from what I understand, Sabrina actually is interesting because she was recruited because they found her on Google when they were supposed to be finding another Sabrina Thompson or something like that. So she didn't watch the show. You know, she didn't know all the social politics that went into it. So the fact that she made it as far as you could tell she was figuring out as it went on, similar to kind of Rodney in One World a little bit. I think Rodney just is a bit more of a hothead than she is, and is a very stick to who he is type of person. But I like Sabrina. I definitely wouldn't put her in a D. For me, it would have to be teetering that line of B and C, maybe more towards C. But what are you guys thinking for Sabrina?
Yeah, she's kind of been like a necessary cog in the like Kim Spradlin domination machine on One World. Like without Sabrina, I don't know how like Sabrina's really competent. I think she's pretty competent. I don't have the strongest beat on her game, unfortunately, so I don't have as many things I can talk about. I've wanted her back too for a while. I would say Sabrina for me was B, even possibly leaning higher I was looking at her upside, only because if it wasn't for Kim, I think Sabrina probably wins, but then I'm also like Kim is so instrumental. But it really is like Kim, Chelsea, Sabrina, this trio. Kim just happens to be the most likable and the most strategic. But I think Sabrina is the runner-up there, and she ends up, if it isn't for Kim, I think Sabrina wins. I held Kim's win in a very high estimation. I have it oftentimes say it's the best single season performance we've ever seen in Survivor, as far as domination goes. I would probably put her in the B tier.
I was gonna put her B as well. I think she did a pretty good job of keeping the alliance. I think she kept the alliance together, and I also think that she played a pretty good game. It's just like you said, Adam, overshadowed by Kim's, and I want to see her again.
Yeah, I was disappointed that she didn't come back for Second Chance because she was there. She was ready to go. So, over some of the other players we got on that season.
Monica. I definitely would have rather see Sabrina than Monica. Well, another thing too with Sabrina's, because yes, she did take away 2 of Kim's, jury votes from a dominant game. But if you look at what those 2 jury votes were, it was Troyzan, who was like the only like super anti-Kim, kind of like her arch enemy of the season, and then it was Leif, who just seemed like he had no idea what was going on at any points in the game. So it was probably, of all the jurors that could have voted for Sabrina, the 2 she got were probably the 2 most unimpressive ones. I don't think she did that good at Final Tribal Council. I think maybe those 2 votes were locked coming in, and she didn't sway any votes her way. If anything, maybe swayed votes away from her.
How?
At Final Tribal Council, just with not giving good reasons for why she made it to the end. But for me, it's C. But if you guys both say B, then I'm outnumbered. So
I just think she's good enough for me, and I think B is like the mid tier of my standing of the 5 tiers. I think that I wouldn't put her below average.
And I think in a season without Kim Spradlin, she shines. It's just the fact that she got outplayed by Kim so hard that she's overshadowed.
We need another B anyway, so
we might get another.
We'll see. So Philippines had 2 runners up. I think we're only going to talk about Lisa today. It's tough because I think Lisa played a fine game. It's just, how can you not vote for Denise? Like, all Denise needed to do at the Final Tribal Council was just like, she didn't really need to convince anyone. She just needed to kind of like reiterate the fact that, look, I went to every Final Tribal Council.
Denise had a great Final Tribal, though.
Oh, she did. I'm not taking away from that. But I don't feel like she needed to give one in order to win. As long as she just, like, didn't forget her game and just said, I did this, and I did this. It was just the amount of obstacles she had to overcome, and overcame pretty much all of them, and how decimated her first tribe was. So it's kind of, it's one of the situations where it's like, do we knock Lisa down because of how great of a game Denise played? She only managed to get 1 vote. I was trying to look up real quick on my side screen who her 1 vote is because I forgot.
Was it?
She got RC.
It was.
Who was the first juror? So maybe she was the first juror. So obviously RC had the least amount of like gameplay with the final 3. I wouldn't put Lisa in D. To me, it would probably be maybe similar to Sabrina, actually, like probably teetering that line of B and C. I'd probably lean more towards C, but if you guys would say B for Lisa, I would be fine. My vote is C.
I'm not leaning B. I'm leaning C for Lisa.
Okay.
I saw a post on Facebook. Since I'm keeping up with the fan juries and all that now, because that's where I post these videos sometimes, and I saw a post that said, with scooping Denise and Lisa, it was like, is this the most like close a Final
Stacked.
3 has ever? Yeah, is this the most stacked a Final 3 has ever been? And I was like, what the heck? No, not at all. And like people were in the comments,
Facebook.
Like, yeah, I know. People were in the comments are being like, oh yeah, like I totally agree. Like, you old people, you old farts on Facebook, you don't know nothing.
The most stacked?
No,
in
terrible.
gameplay?
It's got to be 20.
No.
I think maybe they were trying to say, is this the closest? Like, did they?
I'm not
each
even
have,
sure if it's top 5.
Like, did they eat like did they each have 3 votes coming in, and did they have to fight? I don't know. Maybe it might have been something like that. Maybe they were trying to say something like that. I'm trying to give the people on Facebook the benefit of the doubt here.
If I had to sit there and say like stacked Final 3s, I mean, it's nice that they all got a vote. It's kind of different. Usually, there's always like a shutout.
Yeah.
Although,
maybe
unfortunately, one of those votes
saying
went to Scoopin', which isn't great. I kind of wish he got a 0 at the end of the day. But I would say, looking at the like Final 3s, you got China, Heroes, Villains, Winners at War for strong Final 3s. I mean, Natalie comes from the edge, but let's be fair, she did one other season, so she's pretty competent on her own right, compared to like say some other Final 3s. I don't know. Maybe Philippines is up there, but I've never really thought about that.
Was the Facebook person, did they say best Final 3 for an all newbie season?
I
or
don't.
just overall?
I don't think so. 'Cause I think
Well, that
they
wouldn't
just
make
said
sense then, because
I don't
it
know.
wasn't an
I don't
MLB
know.
season.
I don't
Oh,
know.
true,
I
true.
like
Which makes
Facebook.
sense. It might be on Facebook then.
Facebook people, if you're watching this, I still love you. I was just confused at one post. It's not all of you. It's just the one person that posted that. I thought it was stupid. I don't hate you all. But yeah, I think Lisa was mostly
I say
carried.
C.
I think that Lisa was mostly carried by Scoop, and that's what they.
It's
edit
funny.
made it
I
seem
feel like Lisa was like existential crisis 101 on the island between her past life, her current self, and like the game of
Yes.
Survivor, infusing like this
Yes.
ethical dilemma.
Yes.
And then Scoopin had this delusions of grandeur. He thought he was way better than he was.
yeah,
he
I
thought
agree with that. I agree with that.
he thought he could beat Malcolm, which is insane. He was like, I want to take Malcolm. Why not? I'll beat any of them. Lisa's like, oh no. I think she had the right idea. She was initially, they were like, we is that you, Adam?
You good, Adam?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it.
So someone made like a
That was
sling
some
the brakes
that,
outside.
that was somebody stopping their car that was tires screeching because they were looking at Peridiam's take right now. Anyways, carry on.
Yeah, I was like, wow, where's the sound effect board? But no, I think Lisa was a bit weighted down in some cases. I don't know how much I would say she was carried by Michael Scoop, and I think she was more hold down. It was like a weight held attached to her ankle.
Yeah,
They should have taken Abi. I think Lisa could win with Abi in the final three. At the final five, there was such an easy vote Denise out, vote Malcolm out at the final four. You're sitting with Abi Maria in this jury. I think I think Lisa's the winner. I was B leaning C with Lisa because I think she has a decent head on her shoulders. It's just she got overly too emotional, and it was sort of tiring. And I think that she still had some charm. It's just sitting next to Denise, like you said, Adam. Like the story of going to every single final tribal. All Denise had to say was, "I survived every single final tribal council this year." Nobody in the history of Survivor has ever done that. And it's like, and you're actually you're not like Scoopin' or Lisa. You were calm and collected, and you talk pretty well. So I think it was But I'm fine with putting her in C tier if you guys were averaging that way.
It is hard to go up against the therapist at the end, but the fact that she wasn't a good player already bogs her down. So
Yeah.
I think she could be better on a return. I think she was like getting her training wheels off in Philippines. She'll never come back, but I don't know. Just like her whole story was like this ethical dilemma, and she like didn't know how to associate with everyone in this tribe. And I'm like, once she got her survivor legs, I could see her coming back, and I don't know. Yeah. Underestimated.
Yeah.
All right. To move on to 26, Caramon, one of our 4 ties for second place. To me, I really don't even think. I mean, maybe you guys have reasons to put them higher, but to me, these are both Cherry and Dawn are both D's. I just feel like they really didn't make any moves besides latching on to the stronger players of the season, which to me is not. I don't give too much credit to that strategy.
They're I had a difficult time with both of these two, to be honest. Like,
really
going by Sherry, so Sherry's pre-merge I think is actually pretty strong. Okay. Her post-merge, as far as I'm aware, is a D tier post-merge. Like, it's bad, and I think it ends her. For me, it ended Sherry in the D tier because I don't know what playing the best pre-merge or a good pre-merge game, which she actually it doesn't really make a difference in front of the jury because nobody's voting, right?
Right.
And then she like loses her alliance in the pre-merge and gets dismantled with the swap, and at that point she just kind of, like you said, she latches on. As far as Dawn though, like Dawn does have the vote at the merge where she gets the pivotal information that Corinne is flipping, and it's not Cochran, it's not Andrea, it's Dawn who ends up squashing that and giving her alliance the numbers that otherwise Corinne and Malcolm would have swooped in and stolen that split vote. That the favorites were going to split the vote to combat the idol, I think, between Eddie and Reynolds. And then Corinne and Malcolm were like, all right, we're going to go all 4 on. And then they told Dawn, and Dawn, the problem I have with is Dawn was definitely hand in hand with Cochran the whole season, but Dawn just didn't make any lemonade out of the lemon she had from she had a game. She just didn't turn it into anything that anyone's looking at going, oh, that's awesome. I would vote for that. Sitting next to Cochran, who is like a very good speaker, huge Survivor nerd, very, witty and charismatic. at least with that jury. So yeah, I could see. For me, I had Dawn like C, maybe D, but Sherry I had in D.
I had both in D, and I didn't have a lot to say about either, other than the fact that Dawn cries too much sometimes.
I say a lot of the time, yeah. She cries. I think she cried maybe more than almost anyone.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Oh yeah.
Maybe I was like, is Lisa? I think Dawn. I think Dawn cried
Nah,
more than Lisa.
because when you were talking about Lisa being an emotional roller coaster, the whole time I was thinking we're about to get to somebody
Right.
who really was emotional.
Lisa like couldn't figure out like the ethical side of Survivor, which was interesting. 25 seasons deep, like people struggled with that in like maybe season 1 or 2. So like Dawn was just emotionally torn up all the time and missing her home, and I don't know, a little different, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever floats her boat.
So we have Monica Culpepper with Survivor Blood versus Water. She got one jury vote. The rumor is that it was Vetus who voted for her, which again is another case of like the first juror voting for the person. He obviously didn't get to really play that, like hardly any post-merge play. The rumor I heard is that everyone really hated Jervis, and Tyson was basically, everyone was going to vote for Tyson. He just clearly played by far the most dominant game. But even though they wanted to give him a unanimous vote, they didn't want Monica and Jervis to split second place money, and they wanted Jervis to get that one vote so that he could get more money or they wanted Monica to get that extra vote to get more money than Jervis. Or I don't know if it was a money thing or just the bragging rights of being second place, maybe both. Vetus, I guess, was the one to do it. So because of that, if that hadn't happened, Monica wouldn't have gotten any jury votes. Again, it's another case of like, I feel like that's more of a nod towards Tyson than it is a nod against a nod against Monica. She's a tough one. I'd probably say it's got another like B or C one for me. I think she did a good job at like choosing who to align to. I'm like trying to think of like moves I could point out in my head that she made or like progressed her to the ends.
Didn't have a single move or nothing, obviously nothing flashy at him,
Yeah, I mean, her game was mostly she was in the position where the underdogs just kept running to her, and she kept denying them that flip, and that was her game. Like it was just giving. She didn't even want it. She was like, I don't even want to give them the hope, but they're not going to go to Tyson. He was the front runner, and Jervis they didn't like. He was so stubborn, and I mean that's why he gets 0 votes. But like, so like, we have to go to Monica, and Monica's just, I don't want to do this. Like, no, I want to go with these two guys. It's like.
I was thinking.
I put her in C. I had her in C.
Me too. I put her in C too. I just think nothing flashy, but decent alliance play. So that's why I put her above D, because the people in D just had no good alliance play at all.
Right. And like she didn't have too many qualms about the ethics of Survivor or whatever. There's a recurring theme at this point in the show's history where we see all these older women like going deep and they're all losing. And I think Monica's probably one of the better versions of them, of this type of player. Like the mom in like their 40s, Sherry, Dawn, Lisa, and now Monica. And Monica was just like, people aren't giving me credit, as opposed to like Dawn and Lisa and Sherry, who I don't know if that was their biggest problem. So I sort of had Monica a little bit higher than the rest of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, it's just us two now.
Yeah, I guess so. His computer probably died. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he'll join back. Oh wait, why'd you leave, Adam?
Oh man,
we were having a good time without you.
Yeah, so we're about to talk about Natalie Anderson. What do you think about now?
We've just talking about Wu from Cagayan. I'll say the same thing with Wu that I said for Lil, Danielle, Yeah, but and like Amanda, and well, maybe not Amanda, but definitely with like Danielle and Lil is like if the best thing that you did in your season was win final immunity, I can't consider you that good of
No,
a
let's get
runner-up.
something straight, Adam. He would have been better off not winning immunity.
Yeah, because then Cass wins.
Because
It
then
takes him.
Cass wins, takes Wu, Wu probably wins the game.
Yeah.
So that 1
Would he?
second that
Do you
yes,
think Wu would have won?
yes, he would have beat Cass.
I don't know.
You don't think so, Adam? You've got more insight?
Did you
think
not
it was-
see the footage of when Cass got back to Ponderosa?
No. Maybe I gotta watch that.
It's the
I will
most
say-
awkward thing I've seen in my life.
Yeah, I've seen it's
Okay.
possible at that point they were like, well, Cass isn't the winner now, so let's just go off on her. But
Mhm.
I would. My gut says Wu wins that final two.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Cass. I think she's a good character, a good villain. I think she's fun to watch. Put Cass back on a third season, I'd be up for it. But I think Wu wins in that final two at that point in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That said, I put Wu in D.
Same.
I love Wu. I'm a huge Wu fan. Like, I have very weird taste when it comes to my favorites. I have Wu possibly upwards in my top 15. Like, I just love him as a character. I think he gives so much to
Very
this
high
season.
energy, yeah.
I was rooting for Wu. I was hoping he could win. If I like Tony, I was rooting for Wu a lot. Not the best game player though, but that's okay. But man, like between him making probably the worst decision in the history of Survivor, which is taking Tony to the final
Right.
two, and that's like all you had to do was not that, and you win $1 million. That's pretty bad. That's a pretty huge indictment. I don't know. I just there's not a lot of like I can't feel comfortable with Wu's strategy at any point in any episode in the season. He's always just kind of at the bottom getting blindsided, or he's just following Tony's footsteps. He's following Tony's orders. And I'm like, I don't think there's much there to it. Maybe C, but I put him in D.
I can't respect the C just because he really was always on the bottom, like you said. And then, I mean, the fact that you would have been better off if you lost a challenge is just embarrassing. Because, I mean, almost always you're better off winning. But
There are a lot of times in Big. I don't think you guys watch Big Brother, but that happens a lot in Big Brother at the final three because they do final three to final two still. They've been doing it for 20 years. And a lot of times there are instances where there's a weird dynamic where if you win the final challenge, the immunity, you pick who goes with you to the final two. And it's better if this player's chances to win the game if they don't win. But we can tell that they don't know that because we watch the live feeds. It's funny to watch.
Maybe Richard in season 1, only other player better off losing. I don't know. I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. But I mean,
my other argument,
what?
going back to our original debate here, because I wanted to add is, if it was Cass and Wu at the end,
Yeah.
and you didn't have a final tribal council, okay, yes, I probably would say Wu, but there is that final tribal council they have to go through, and I feel like Wu would have bombed. And Cass isn't she like an undefeated lawyer, like has never lost in a court case before as a lawyer or something?
But this is not the courtroom, you know.
It's a jury.
Yeah.
It is a jury, but this is a completely different dynamic.
I do think there's a couple votes she for sure doesn't get. Like, I don't think Trish is going to vote for her.
Yes.
I don't think Sarah. I don't think
Tasha isn't going to vote for her. I know Tasha didn't like her. That was their spat at the merge.
I think she could convince Sarah, though, because, I don't know. I think she could
Sarah,
probably convince Sarah. I agree with you on Trish
maybe.
and Tasha. I think she could have convinced.
Oh, no, yeah, it was Sarah. She had the issue with Sarah at the merge, not Tasha.
Yeah, it was Sarah.
Yeah.
Although I don't think, yeah.
I mean, we can talk about what ifs all day, but
Wu is in Wu.
Yes, but Wu is in it. But like, I love Wu as a character, but stupid.
Yeah, I love Wu. He's up there. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's
I was
very
so
high
happy.
energy. He adds a lot to
I was glad he came back. I see Wu all over these ads. He's always in ads like for random companies.
Yeah.
Makes me laugh. I'm like, hey, I'm happy for him. He seems like a really nice guy. I think he'd be so cool to hang out with. But
yeah, 100%.
Strategically, I don't have him very high. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So from San Juan del Sur, we got Jacqueline. Jacqueline to me is another one of those like B or C, kind of like Sabrina, Twyla. I don't know. I'm maybe leaning more. I actually like Jacqueline's game, and I do look at San Juan del Sur as a whole as a pretty underrated season. And then there's a couple players that made it to like the final 5, final 6 that I consider underrated players. It's like another instance of like the winner being so dominant and getting such a winner's edit.
Yeah, 100%.
At least post merge.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it's a B or a C. So I might let you guys be the tiebreakers for me because I could hear both arguments for it. B is a tough one. I'm like, it's weird that we don't have that B is our one with the least. Because it is like the average. So you'd think it would be the most. So I feel like for most tier ranks, like that average position gets the most. But I guess because it's runner-ups, it's like kind of a different tier rank than normal.
I feel like Jacqueline is pretty average, and I would put her at a B. I mean, there was moments I didn't like about her game, like playing with John. I feel like if John wasn't there, who knows what happens. Yeah, just overall, I mean, she did make moves. Like, she did have moves in the game, which I can respect. And the fact that she did make moves, period, which is a lot to ask from some of these second placers. Just to make a move. Just make one move, you know? So for that fact is why I would put her above a C. So a B.
Yeah, I was between a B. I was between a B and a C. I think, based on my personal ones, I probably had her in a C tier, but that's because it's hard. I find it difficult to gauge exactly where a strategic head is at, and she's so closely linked to John, and that actually results in quite a disastrous moment where they're in like that argument.
Yeah.
For Reed, and Reed's like, my life depends on this couple finding a way to agree with each other on a personal level. And it's like, yeah, that's not good luck. Like, strategically, that's pretty rough. I understand emotionally, and you're in a relationship. That's a different story. That's important. You know, you guys, you do you. That goes beyond the show. But like, and then what's interesting is like Jacqueline could have won this season if she had taken. This is the really interesting what if. If Jacqueline had voted for Natalie when Natalie plays her idol on her at the final 5, Jacqueline wins that season. As crazy, like when Natalie stands up and says, "Jacqueline, did you vote for who I told you to vote for?" If Jacqueline said yes and had voted for Natalie, and Natalie would have gotten voted out in the tie, this is a lot of like what if scenarios. But basically playing it all out because she wins the final 4. Keith goes at final 4 still. Jacqueline wins against Missy and Baylor in the final 3. I think that's incredible. Unfortunately, Jacqueline never saw that, and I don't blame her too much for it. It's interesting to note that she could have won. Ultimately, I put her at C, but I'm fine with B. I think she's a pretty average. I think I'm underselling her more than anything else. I don't know. Yeah. I don't have too much to say other than that. But yeah. Like I can't pinpoint her strategic mind all that often, but I do think she's probably a B tier. I would say I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, because I'm also looking at like, I think like at the C's, I do think she played a better game than like Kelly. I think she played a better game than Lil, better than Courtney, better than Danielle. So it's like, if I'm just saying yes to her beating out all of these C's, I probably feel a little more comfortable putting her in B as well. So
also, we have so many C's at this point. Like,
yeah,
on my personal one, I had a lot of B's. Actually, B is the one I have the most of. So it's interesting. I think your guys have somehow gotten to drag my opinions lower with these people. You got me to agree with you guys have a lower estimation than I might.
We do. We often do that. Yes.
With worlds apart, to me, it's opposite ends. I put Carolyn A and I put Will at D.
At what? What was that? For what?
At a D.
He didn't say B. He said D.
I thought you might have said B.
Yeah, I was about to be like, excuse me, Adam.
I just think Will clearly made no moves to get him to the end, except being a person no one liked. Therefore, everyone felt comfortable taking him to the end because everyone knew they could beat him, and he was so unthreatening. Whereas Carolyn, I thought, made a lot of smart moves. Presented herself in a way that a lot of people wanted to work with her. I don't know if I'd consider putting Carolyn in the S. I wouldn't be mind blown if one of you guys put Carolyn in the S by any means, but to me it's It's A for Carolyn and B for Will. But
I don't have her at an S. I did put her at an A. It is unfortunate that she fell victim to Mike just being an absolute god at challenges. But I mean, it's Survivor.
If he loses any one of those challenges, I think she would have won.
Yeah, and it's Survivor. It's Survivor, and that's how the cookie crumbles. However, she did make good moves, and she made moves to advance her in the game, and people did actively come to her. And I think it's very impressive that you can go to the end with the name Mama C, because usually when you get Mama behind your name, that is a very big target on you, because Mamas are usually well liked, and you don't want to sit next to them.
You're making me want to put her in S now.
I kind of wanted to. For me, it's A leaning S. However, I don't think she has exact qualifications for S. But she is a very solid A for me.
Because I mean, when you look at like the people we have in S, like Ozzy had some flaws, but him in Cook Islands was arguably the greatest challenge competitor single game. Russell in Samoa was arguably the greatest single strategic game ever played. Parvati should have won Heroes and Villains and would have been the greatest of all time had she won. I think even if Tony wins Winners at War with that scenario, I would still put Parvati at number 1. But it's like, does Mama C fit up there with those three?
I don't think so, but very impressive. And for me, is probably the person that is a borderline S.
Yeah. I agree with your initial take, Adam. I had Mama C at A, and I had Will at D. A long time ago, I made a video back in 2017 where I ranked who I thought were the top 5 best runners up. So it's very applicable to this video. Now, things have changed, obviously. That was 4 years ago. But I went back just to make sure. I'm like, I knew I liked Mama C. I'm like, oh yeah, I put her in my top 5.
It's a crime that she hasn't played again. It's a crime.
I would be like A leaning S. I don't have her in S. She's not one of my S's. But yeah, I think in I haven't gone through like the nitty gritty what ifs, but I think there's a good case to be made for her winning if Mike doesn't, beast out and win 5 challenges and play as idol. I think she was set up pretty well from very early on in the merge to go the distance, and I think she beats almost any of them. I think, don't know for sure, but I think so. And then Will was, I guess, kind of like just the dead fish, and he was along for the ride.
Not a lot.
He was a dead fish who bit back for some reason, and
a dead fish and just a douchebag. Like, and they call him a YouTube star. They call him a YouTube star.
That's what we can aspire to be if we ever get on. Social media influencer Will Sims.
I mean,
he was the first.
Golly.
Who was your top 5 runner-ups?
I don't remember exactly everyone. Also, we haven't gotten to all of them. There's some people who are still unmentioned yet.
Was Parvati number 1?
I don't remember. No, I don't think she was. No, she wasn't. But she was up there. She was in my top 5. Parvati was up there. Mama C was up there. And this is like right at Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. That was like around the middle of it, I think, or the end of that season. So I didn't account for anything after that. I don't remember exactly. But yeah.
All right.
I had to go back and watch it because I was like, I don't even remember what I said, so I hope it matches up with my current thoughts today, like assuming nothing's changed. Well, no cheating. No.
Your number one,
gosh.
Like,
I know who's number 1. I know who I put at number 1, and I'm trying to remember who I put at number 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's
anyway.
Kobe, Rob, Russell.
Yeah, that was it.
Fishback and Aubry's number 1. Yeah.
Did I put Russell? No.
Yeah, you put Russell at 3, I swear.
I don't think so, because I had Mama C in there.
You did?
Yeah.
Watch it, man.
I might have been trolling with the Russell one. I'm known to do that.
I don't know. I just glanced through your videos, so that's what I saw.
Okay.
To go to Cambodia, it's interesting because like if you would tell me to tier rank Spencer, who's only played twice, as a player overall, I'd probably put him in A, leaning B, but A. But if you're having me rank his game in Cambodia, it was like he kind of lost that like competitive like fire. Like he had this passion that you just don't see from like players playing their first time. And it wasn't overshadowed by the other great first time player that season, obviously being the winner Tony. He kind of was like right up there with him. And even Cass at times. But if you would have me rank his Cambodia game, it would probably be a C for me. I just feel like there's a lot. He just every time he kept switching. You know, there was a lot of voting blocks that season, and even though the voting blocks weren't like your typical alliance, I feel like they still kind of had like their like mini hierarchies, and I just feel like every time he was in a voting block, he was like at the bottom there with like Keith. Like it seemed like he would say at the beginning of every episode, like, I want this person gone. And I don't think that person ever ended up being the person going home that episode. And he aligned with Jeremy very tight towards the end there, which was crazy because it seemed like it was so obvious that Jeremy was the front runner. So it was just like, why would you team that hard with the front runner? Unless he didn't notice it.
We were also getting the edit of Jeremy, like, I have a kid that's being born, like, that whole information wasn't revealed.
Well, he didn't say that till the end, did he?
Yeah, he didn't say it to the end. I feel like if Jeremy would have told Spencer that, he probably wouldn't have taken him to the end. So good game move by Jeremy not saying that. But that being said, I do agree, like, yay, we get the whole story arc of you finally saying I love you to your girlfriend or whatever, but like I wanted that.
They're not together.
I wanted that Spencer fire.
They broke up. True love is dead.
I wanted that fire, man. I wanted the fire. So I mean, he's still a good player and he still understands strategy, but nothing. And, you know, correct me if I'm being wrong here. Maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but nothing really stood out to me about his game that was that special.
Just played too conservatively for me. And, like, if we're ranking, like, kind of like you with Wu, like, Spencer's one of my – I'd even say Spencer's, like, a top 5. Like, that sort of Fishback Spencer character is, like, my favorite type of Survivor players. Like, Spencer's top 5 favorite Survivor players for me. But if we're talking Cambodia, it just seems like he played – so conservatively in one of the most aggressive seasons. So
I think for me, Spencer is an underdog at the beginning. I think up until the merge, he's kind of an underdog. He's sort of at the majority alliance's beck and call in the split when they go to the other the tribes dissolve. He's with Kimmy and Steven and Jeremy. He doesn't really have much say or power. I think he was going to get voted out by Savage even in the second swap, and then they blindsided Wu instead. And they get to the merge, and that's when Spencer starts to get his legs a little bit. He ends up doing the blindside on Steven Fishback, which allowed him a slot to get to the final 3, because I think he said, like, Steven's got my spot. The only problem I have from that point forward is, like, why would you want that to be your spot when there are probably better final 3 combinations? I don't fully understand, like, what his perception was. He's probably clarified this in postseason interviews, but, like, did you not think Jeremy was that big of a threat? Did you maybe overestimate your own capabilities to win the jury over?
Right.
And it's hard to gauge because we get a very front and center Spencer edit on that season, even more so I think than Kagian, and he is a contender. It feels like he's a contender, but he gets no votes. And I'm like, what went wrong? Like, I feel like at face value, I feel like he's an A at face value, but when you peel it back, it's like it's less, maybe even a B or a C. So for me, I actually put both of them at the B tier, both him and Tasha, only because I don't fully know what, like, they're competent. They're okay. I think that they could win seasons of Survivor for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Sitting next to Tony, sitting next to Jeremy, not probably going to happen. But I don't think that just rules them out. I think that they have decent strategic heads on their shoulders. They have a decent tactical game. And I think they were, like, Spencer in particular was able to ebb and flow at points in Cambodia to get to where he was, but I don't love where he ended up. So I don't know. I don't know if he's below average for me, like at a C or a D. I think I had him in the middle. It's just he does okay, but it's like I don't even know how he wins. Like, does he have to take Abi from the final 7 to get to and does he even beat Tasha? Do I even know that? Like, I don't have a great estimation of Tasha's game either because it's so focused on Spencer and Jeremy that I'm like, what was Tasha's reputation? Was she just disregarded? What did she stand out? Does Spencer win? Is Spencer like the honorary second place in that 3? I don't know. So I kind of just put them at the same tier. Like they both kind of fell in the same spot. I did say they were both kind of goats. Maybe if they took Abi, one of them stood a chance. I don't even know who. So yeah, I put them both in B, but I could go either direction.
Yeah, then you're the top because I had them both at C. I had Spencer leaning B, Tasha C leaning B. But
I had Spencer at C, and Tasha. I had Tasha. I still haven't made my mind up about Tasha because I don't feel like she deserves D, but like I just didn't see anything. Nothing.
Yeah.
She won. She won 2 immunities, right? She definitely won at least one.
Yeah,
I feel like even the one she lost, I feel like she was always there. Like she's a really underrated.
There's no denying her challenge prowess. Like but still, it's just like
she actually didn't win any.
She didn't.
She didn't.
No.
Yeah, she's
Joe won 4, Spencer won 3, Kelly won 2,
Jeremy won the last.
Jeremy.
Maybe I'm thinking of Cagayan.
She won. She won. I think 3 on Cagayan or something, 2 or 3.
Yeah, okay. I thought Tasha.
Cagayan. I thought Cagayan Tasha was actually pretty good. It's just she was down in numbers. I think if her alliance and Cagayan took the numbers, she could have potentially won that season. If Cass doesn't flip, unfortunately.
Cagayan was so stacked.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of contenders in Cagayan that I would have loved to see, like the alternate timeline where Cass doesn't flip, just to see like how does that break out, and like
Tony goes insane.
God Idol and it would be like Yule at the merge with the down in numbers. How does Tony finesse having the God Idol, and does he get voted out or what happens? I don't know. Anyway, So feel free to break the tie or put them lower.
I thought Spencer was C and Tasha was D.
Okay. So did Spencer?
So then they're both C then, it sounds like, because you had him at C, I had at B, and he had him at D.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
All right, Peridiam, how about you get us started on this one, huh?
Aubry. Yeah, let's talk about Abi Bronco. I think she's the second coming of Russell Hantz when it comes to robbed discussions. She is the modern version of like, man, when I watched that play out live, it was like a train wreck in slow motion. I vividly recall that season and like the experience of watching go wrong and the discourse on the online communities. Oh my God. The Survivor subreddit had to implement like a no spoilers edit discussion. It was fascinating to see it play out. And now it's like been that way for like the last 6 years or something. Anyway, Aubry, I really like her. I put her at S tier. Personally, I don't know if I want to agree with that, but I don't know. I'm not looking at Edge of Extinction. I'm not looking at Game Changers. I'm strictly looking at Co Wrong. Aubry I think Aubrey's biggest flaw is her inability to win over the douchebags of Scott and Jason in some way. Fair play, like that happens. You've got jurors that you don't gel with and they don't vote for you. It happens. But I think her ability to ebb and flow throughout the season, to win people, to flip Ty, who's got that God Idol in his pocket, to flip him and convince him just through sheer emotion and getting him on her side, which was a pivotal moment for her and her game to get to the final 2 or the final 3. It's one of the best moves you'll see in Survivor, and it's not done through advantages. It's not done through like cheap, no immunities or whatever. It's just strictly pure social gameplay. I don't know. She also has her number one ally get taken out at the merge and take an idol. It doesn't even give her the idol, which would have been a huge boon for her. Of course, there's if Neil doesn't get voted out there's the theory that Aubry gets voted out. I don't know if you guys knew that. Neil gets medevaced, and the idea is that if Neil doesn't get medevaced, then Aubry was going to get blindsided at that vote. So there's that, which isn't the best. But ultimately, I feel really good about Aubrey's game. I've always liked her a lot, and I think she plays a really good game. Not to take away anything from Michelle. I think Michelle does a good job too. But I think Aubry just displays so much finesse. She has generally the right calls. Unfortunately, she's with Ty, who doesn't, and yeah, I had her at S tier.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
On Reality Pop here, we just recently had a video called "A Win Is a Win." Why Michelle deserved to win, and all due respect to Coach Drew, I disagree. I think Aubry should have won to this day. And if you guys want to argue with me why Michelle should have won, then maybe the editor should have given her a freaking edit, because she didn't get one, and Aubry got the winner's edit. And I think she got the winner's edit for a reason, because she played a good, flashy, at sometimes game. I mean, way more flashy than Michelle. I mean, she was loud, and she still made it to the end. Made the right moves, and like Peridiam said, to reiterate, I mean, and the moves you make without advantages, just sheer manipulation is a beautiful thing to watch. It's one of the reasons I like Russell a lot, and so yeah, I think Aubry should have won, and for that reason, she's an S.
All right. Well, I guess it doesn't matter what I say then. But
no, I want to know what Adam says, because I think there's a case to be made. She could be lower, but what did you have her at?
So I had her in A, and I'd say besides Boston Rob and All Stars, she was probably the highest, like most leaning towards S. Maybe right up there with Colby, I guess, and Boston Rob is like the two highest A's for me. It's so tough to say if she should have won, because I sort of agree with Drew. Now that you brought up Drew, I kind of got a reference to his video too. But I feel like Michelle really did play a great game, and they were going up against like a non-typical jury. I think that jury wasn't, especially compared to some of the seasons that had just come before it, like Blood versus Water or San Juan del Sur, Worlds Apart. Like, it felt like a pretty unorthodox jury, and they were looking for different things. And I feel like Michelle realized that more than Aubry and capitalized on that more, and like honed in on what that specific jury was looking for. And for me, Final Tribal Council is playing a big factor in my decision for these tier ranks. I don't like completely disagree. Like, I'm not completely mind blown. I'm not going to screech my tires outside to you guys saying Aubry is an S tier. I'm outvoted, so we're going to put her in S anyway. But if it were me, I'd say say A tier.
I don't know what more besides the fact that she doesn't win. I'm like, she plays, at least from what we see, outside of maybe crossing out that one vote at the pre-merge. That was pretty rough. That was a bad call. I think it was when she voted for Scott and then she crossed it out or something and voted for Peter. That was a bad move. I didn't like that. And she was highly emotional at the beginning, and she had trouble adapting to the environment. To be fair, Cambodia, really harsh environment, probably the harshest they've ever been to in the history of the show. Maybe next to Guatemala. So I don't blame her for that. It'd probably be in a worse state, having headaches and cramps and whatever.
You don't think Africa was the worst?
I mean, it probably was, but I think like if they took Africa in modern Survivor, it wouldn't be nearly as bad. I think it was the way that the producers handled it. Although I don't know. Maybe, yeah, they're like had to drink out of like those shitty little streams, and that was their water source. That was pretty rough. But then I look at like Caleb turning purple and almost dying, getting medevaced, and I'm like, yeah, they had snipers in Africa to stop the animals from getting close. So I don't know.
She played a great
tough.
Game. There's no denying she played an amazing game.
I just don't know what else she could do.
If she had one,
to not be an S.
Yeah, and I agree, because like if she had one, like if when we tier rank the winners, I think what did we put Michelle in? Do you remember, Gideon, when we tier ranked the winners?
Oh, B?
B maybe?
B.
I feel like B. And I feel like Aubry would probably have been in A if I was tier ranking winners and Aubry had won.
And so like that's for me the grade scale of a runner-up game. They are inherently flawed in that they've all lost. They've all had something critical to like the strategic game they were judging that caused them to lose. So like, what does it look like to be a loser but still be like the best? Like to give us a game of Survivor that is worthy of being like considered one of the greatest losing games. I think Aubry puts up a great performance on Wrong. I don't know.
I agree with that. Okay, so moving on to Millennials and Gen X, and I hope Coach Drew isn't watching this, but I would put both of them in D. I just feel like I mean, I would, if I had to pick one, I thought maybe would deserves to be in seed more. It'd probably be Hannah, who is Coach Drew's favorite survivor of all time.
Oh, really? She put out
yeah.
a podcast yesterday. I don't know if he knows about that.
Did she?
She started a new podcast on
Wow.
RTP. Yeah. And
Oh
she's the
wow,
host
I
of
didn't
it.
know that.
Yeah.
Is it Survivor? Is it just solely Survivor?
It's Survivor. Yeah, she had Christian Hubicki on as a guest, which is great. Always a great conversation, and they talked about archetypes on Survivor. So anyway, speaking of Hannah,
cool. Yeah. So D.
You put them both in D.
I put them both in D, and
if you had to pick one to put in C, you would have picked Hannah.
I just feel like she knew, just because I think she had just a better game awareness. I feel like Ken probably had the single worst awareness of any runner-up here.
Yeah.
Even not over Matt.
Even less than Will.
Maybe Matt on Airfelder?
Maybe Matt.
Maybe Matt.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with putting them both in D, but I kind of respect Ken more just because of the physical aspect.
I liked Ken more.
Yeah, there's that. I do agree with Gideon in the physical department.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, I put them both in D for the. I mean,
yeah,
they didn't really do much. I mean, let's be real. The star of the show was David, and then once he's gone, I thought it was pretty clear that Adam was going to win.
So Ken is my second S tier. No, I'm kidding. Ken is actually what I on my personal I had F. I set it lower than D, and Ken is in my F tier. Yeah, sorry, Gideon. I'm not high on Ken at all. I'll never forget Will's confessional where he said that Ken is like listening to nails on a chalkboard with his ability. his strategizing is like nails on a chalkboard. It's so painful, and I'm like, yeah, Ken's not. Will Wall.
Oh, okay.
On the season itself. And that always stuck out to me as like that is a scathing commentary from another person about your strategic ability. And like the fact that he goes and he gets no credit for like his biggest move, which is turning on David. And it's like, damn, dude, you really had bad jury management. They really did not think highly of you. And you had 39 days to fix that. And then Hannah, speaking of the same archetype, Hannah, I actually did have in a C tier for the same reason as Adam, because I felt like she had some better situational awareness of what needed to be done and didn't really make too much of a difference. So I was like, maybe she's D, but it feels harsh to put her at the same level as Ken. So I put Ken at F. But if we're sticking her in the same tier, I do think Hannah's better personally than Ken. Sorry, Gideon. But
oh man, hey, I put them both.
She had the awareness, she just didn't have the confidence to do anything about it.
Yeah,
and she was kind of
they were both in a losing position from like the final. I don't even know. You go far. Like I think they lose to Brett, they lose to David, they lose to Ken, or not Ken. They lose to Jay, they lose to Adam. There's just not a good combination for them, and it's like. That's rough. That
Which
is like
crazy because they were in the sort of like it seemed like they collectively kind of decided who went home on numerous vote outs.
They did. They were a good swing vote. They had the direction of the game in hand. They could have taken out David numerous times. I don't. Yeah. I put them in. I would be fine with D tier. I personally put Hannah in C, but
okay.
I can go D.
I'm fine.
Either or.
Brad on Game Changers, my opinion might surprise you because I'm guessing both of you guys. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess both of you say A. That's my guess. I put him as a B. I know he only lost by one vote. I know he tied the record, but I think he did not play a good social game. I think he only got those 4 votes out of respect for his challenge run.
7-3.
Oh, 7-3.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I don't know why I had it as something else. Yeah, 7-3. I think he only got those 3 votes because out of respect for his challenge run. I think he had a bad final tribal council, which is surprising because he's he is like a charismatic guy, and he does have a lot of confidence, and he is similar to what I said with Cass. He is a lawyer, and he did come into it thinking he was going to win, which I believe does play a huge factor if you believe in like the law of attraction. Like if you believe something's going to happen enough, it's probably going to happen. But I just don't think Brad played a good social game at all. I think he had poor jury management. I think he got on a lot of people's bad sides. I don't think he played a good strategic game. From what I hear, Troyzan actually made a lot more decisions with that pair, and that Brad actually came to Troy a lot because Brad just knew that Troy knew the game and how strategy worked a lot better. And a lot of times Brad would come to Troy and just say, tell me what to do, and we'll do it. They didn't show that because I think it
didn't fit the narrative as well.
Yeah. And it would have been too much. I don't think Survivor works that well when you have like 3 people getting like somewhat of a winner's edit coming in. I mean, I want that to happen. I just don't think the editors think that for some reason. It just seems like they always make one of the final 3 have kind of like at least one, if not 2, have kind of like the GOAT edit for some reason. I don't know why, but
yeah, I don't know why either. I hate it. I think that'd be so much cooler if we had like 3 contenders, and we don't know exactly who's going to get it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. But I just think Brad has way more flaw. Like I'm looking at the other A's like Colby, Rob, Fishback, Coach, and Carolyn. I feel like Culpepper has so many more clear flaws than all of those people. I couldn't imagine putting him in a C or a D, but I say Brad is a B for me.
Yeah, I had him in B as well. I had him as B as well, actually.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you knew this. He's admitted on podcast. He actually snuck in the producers' camp in the post-merge.
Really?
And he took food and drink. He took a shower. It was on a reward. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but he hoarded food to himself, and he admitted it. It was on Max and Corinne had a podcast years ago called All the Fixins, and he was on it, and he admitted it. And I'm like, wow, that makes it interesting knowing he goes on an immunity streak when he's got the nutrition to back it up. He said he didn't share it with anyone else. And I'm like, okay, like you managed to out finesse the game itself, but damn,
how does it even happen? Aren't there like hundreds and hundreds of people?
I don't know for sure, but he said it. So I'm like, interesting that he would admit to that. You know, it didn't come from anyone else's mouth. It came from him.
Right.
So yeah. But either way, I think like, winning 5 immunities, no small feat. Tying the record, even if he did have some extra food or something in him. He had some strategic maneuverability in the pre-merge. He had the somewhat of a connections, and maybe that was more pre-game based going into the season, but to get JT to give him that information, that's pretty interesting. That leads to the Malcolm blindside. That was largely because of Culpepper duping JT and getting JT to believe that was in JT's best interest to take out Sandra with that split vote, the 2 tribes going together. Ultimately, though, yeah, like I felt like he was a front runner for a good part of the season up until he just gives better players the opening to take over, like Sarah. I don't know. I don't think he wins under most situations in this season, but he's not all bad. He's okay. I have him B.
Yeah, Adam, I think you underestimated me and Peridiam's opinions here because I was the same way. I mean, we've seen in Survivor that you can win, just based off of pure social game. And if you lack it, that is a huge gaping hole in your game. I can't put that in A. So B.
Okay. So my question is, do you guys, so we all agree on B, but do you think he's B leaning more A or C? Because to me, it would probably be A.
A, probably. I don't know. I don't really think he leans here for me.
I don't either.
I don't know off the top of my head. Probably C, but even then, I feel pretty comfortable with B.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's been a minute since I've seen Game Changers.
So me and Gideon just rewatched Heroes, Healers, and Hustlers. So this is a fresh one in my mind. I have Chrissy in A. I'm looking at the other A's, and I like how she fits in with Fishback coaching in Carolyn is the more recent ones. I don't feel like she had the, obviously she did great. She tied the record, right, for challenges.
Yeah, tied. Yeah.
Yeah, she tied the record. She had that going for her. You could say she didn't have that many like flashy moves, but I don't feel like she really had like the opportunities or the need to make any like big huge moves. I feel like some of her more like subtle moves was really all she needed to get to the final tribal. And I feel like if she had known about the fire making challenge from the get go, it maybe would have been more of a press to getting Ben out a little sooner than they did. I feel like that might be her biggest flaw is just not knowing about the final. She had positions where she was in power, and then like an episode or either the next episode or 2 episodes later found herself towards the bottom of the numbers simply because of people flipping and alliances being rearranged. Not really anything she did specifically, and somehow she always found a way to creep back up. There was no aspect of her game that really like completely blew me away except the physical game, which, of like the major aspects of Survivor to me, I probably grade the lowest. I don't think she had the strongest final tribal, although the Heroes, Healers, and Hustlers final was weird. I feel like they gave a lot of time towards Ben, and I feel like we didn't hear Chrissy talk so much, and I feel like it felt short. It felt like we skipped a lot in the edit. I would say A, maybe leaning more towards S than B. I don't know. Chrissy's an A for me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
She was one for me too. She was also an A. Great physically. Pretty good strategy wise. She knew where to be at the right times. I think her game was cringy at times, like telling like Ben that she had the idol when he already had it. Like, I don't know, it just feels.
It was a good move if she hadn't had it.
Yeah, still, it's just like kind of rubbing it in. I don't know. It didn't seem. I wouldn't have done it. And she didn't do a good job of selling it anyway. She's a terrible liar. So yeah, I for the most, she had a pretty sound game. For that, I'd say A. I can't say S just because I don't think, you can say that she was robbed by the fire challenge all the time, but at Survivor, you got to be prepared for anything.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough thing to be prepared for. I put her in A as well. Matching the comp beast or challenge beast for immunity wins, and she was against like former Marine. Like that's pretty crazy. I don't think Ryan was that dumb, like some of those mental comps or whatever.
Adam's a big Ryan fan, so
yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, like I'm surprised. Like she had competition that she still managed to outmaneuver in that department, and then I think her strategic game was there. Unfortunately, she does get bested by a couple of other players like Devin, who probably if it wasn't for fire making, probably wins the season most likely. Not 100% certain of that, but I do think he's probably the person I'd bet on to win that final 3. Maybe it's hard to say, but it's probably her or Devin, unless you're a Ryan truther. I don't know if Adam's a Ryan truther in this.
He might be, actually. I don't
know. I don't think Ryan would have won that if it wasn't for the fire making, which, hey, that's pretty good. Like, I ultimately, strategic game is pretty much on point. Gets blindsided in the middle of the merge, but up to that point, I think she does well. She recovers pretty well. She wins 4 immunities. I think she has a good shot to win the season if it wasn't for an unprecedented twist that, honestly, it's hard to play around. Could have worked maybe harder, all of them, on finding those idols to prevent Ben. I guess. Who's to say? If they didn't work hard enough, they just never could have found them anyway. I don't know. But either way, I had her day.
Yeah, I agree. Hello, Snake Blood.
Wait, Snake? He's a moderator in my Twitch chat.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel a little better about being the last person named in his or hers comment. But There's a lot of comments earlier about how great of a duo it was seeing Curly Daddy and Peridiam, so I'm just glad I get mentioned once here.
If it wasn't for Adam, this wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, I mean,
he's the
Adam,
glue.
the difference is this is your claim to fame. This channel, you know, we just latched onto you, you know.
Moving on to Ghost Island. I think Dom is the best runner-up of all time, and I put him in S.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's great. Still a little bit of a flaw there that he didn't win, and probably didn't have a good relationship with. Oh gosh, name Adam Peridiam.
Wendell. Laurel?
Other one.
Laura?
Yeah, there you go. Laurel. There it is, Laurel. Yeah, you know, a flaw there, but overall, an amazing game. A much louder game than Wendell's. You know, but Wendell's not taking away anything from Wendell, because I do believe he did play a great game on that season. But Dominic,
do you?
Do
you think that?
Shut up! Shut up! I don't like his Winners at War edit. I never talk crap about his Ghost Island. The only bad thing I ever say about Wendell is that he talks too much crap during challenges and needs to shut up and win.
All right, man. I might have to check the replay, but all right.
Look, man. I say the same thing every time. Wendell needs to shut up. Okay, but either way, I still think he played a good game. And I respect him more every day.
So S for Dom?
Yeah, S for me. I mean, very dominant physically, socially, physically, strategically. Maybe you can say social game is a bit lacking. But golly, the rivalry. I mean, amazing. I love it.
Which he won.
Yeah, which he won. So yes.
Yeah, so I put Ken at S. Dominic's at my F tier. Obviously, that's not the case. Yeah, Dominic is probably the easiest shoe-in for S. I don't think there's much that needs to be said here. He lost by 1 vote. I guess if there's anything, it's like, damn, dude, you couldn't get Laurel's vote. Who'd have thunk?
Right.
To be fair, another unprecedented thing. Who knew? Like, I didn't know for sure what they did at a final at a tie. Maybe if he had known, he would have spent more time cultivating, I don't know, a better relationship with Laurel.
Jeff has definitely mentioned that before.
Because it wasn't like Wendell.
You're right.
Laurel
He mentioned
it
in Game Changers, I believe, which was interesting. And I talked about this in a video. I made a clip about it because I noticed that he said it at the end of Game Changers, but they had not filmed Ghost Island yet.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
It's very uncanny. It was very uncanny how he said it. He revealed how a tie's broken for some reason, but it wasn't because Ghost Island that he knew what was happening. It had yet to film at that time. They had filmed HHH. And they were about to go film Ghost Island. And then what do you know? Jeff goes out there, and 39 days later, there's a tie.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, there you go. They didn't just make it up on the spot, you know? It's, they had it set up from the beginning.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Actually, so maybe, anyway. Dominic's an S,
I was going to say, it wasn't like Wendell and Laura were like, you know, a super tight bond. I think there was even multiple times that Laura was like questioning her alliance with Wendell. It's just that, for whatever reason, Laurel and it was funny because like Laurel and Donathan were sort of just the two people that like sort of like Ken and in Hannah, Millennials and Gen X were just these two people who just always found themselves in a swing vote position. But like for some reason, it seemed like on Millennials and Gen X, everyone was like fighting for their votes, whereas it seemed like on Ghost Island, it was just like, we'll just wait for Wendell to come and tell us who to vote for, especially towards the end. And maybe it was that Wendell was the person telling them and not Dom, because it wasn't like Wendell and Laurel were like super tight, because they definitely weren't. But if Dom's biggest flaw is being like a little less tight with Laurel than Wendell was, then to me he's like S. And like I know some tier ranks have like the one person they put in like the SS. If we did have that, it would probably be Dom for me.
Yeah, I think he plays a great strategic game. Physical game is up there. Not much to say, I think. Yeah, he could be even above the S if there was like an S plus or something. But I almost might say he's like the number one in some ways.
Mhm.
Like, it's funny because I made the video of ranking the best, and then all of a sudden next season we get like probably the best. To be
Right.
like in a tiebreaker 11 vote jury, like it's wild. It's almost, and it says something about Wendell's game too. You know, I think Wendell oftentimes gets underrated due to Winners at War now, but
Right.
yeah,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately, yeah.
Um,
Dom, I
Okay.
thought Dom played like the winner. I thought for most of the season that Dom was gonna be the winner. I get blindsided sometimes, but I thought he was, and so I was a bit surprised. I wasn't surprised when Laura voted for Wendell. I felt like that made sense. I was just surprised
yeah.
that it resulted in a tie and that it wasn't Dom the winner before that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it Mike White? Is that who's
Mike.
next?
Mike.
Definitely did not see him coming to second. I was watched School of Rock, and I'm a filmmaker myself, so I knew of him coming in. I think to most people he was like just I never heard of him, or like just like oh yeah, I might have seen him once. But to me, he was like just as big of some of the other celebrities, I guess, that have come on, like Jeff Kent. I probably knew Mike White as much as I did Jeff Kent. Granted, I'm a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, so I try to eliminate baseball from my life as much as possible. But that being said, Mike did get 7 votes against someone who I thought had a great game, had great jury management, and had a great final tribal council in Nick. He still managed to get 3. I think all of them were from his alliance, from his Goliath alliance that sort of broke apart because of some smart advantage play and blindsides. I don't know. I definitely can't put Mike in D, but I'm looking at some of the other Bs, and I don't know if he's quite as good in my mind as like a Twyla or as like a Amanda or
I'll say something. I think he is on par with them in the B tier. I mean,
Okay.
how can you gauge an idol nullifier? How can you gauge all those plays from the Davids? That is so hard. And I, first of all, I think Mike has a great social game. He seemed to always be in good spirits with everybody, no matter what. I mean, I can't really ever see him we never really saw him getting into qualms with anybody. And as far as strategy goes, he did have pretty good alliances and moved pretty well within those alliances. He didn't have a bit, big flashy moves, but he did play a good game overall. Probably my favorite celebrity to play so far. We're getting more in 41, so maybe, but him and Jeff Kent are up there for me as great Survivor celebrities, and he probably tops the list for me.
The only battle Mike White had on that season was with a bottle of wine, and I think he won that.
And that was freaking hilarious. So I think B. I would put him in B. I think
that was a bad
he's
move.
very solid.
He should have sat there and enjoyed the feast. What was the point of getting that idol? It didn't help him. It was it was a non-factor.
That was fun. That was freaking hilarious, man.
Yeah,
It was great.
okay.
Oh, you guys both had him at B tier?
I
had
put him at
I had
B.
C.
Oh, you had him
I
at
had
C.
C.
Okay.
I had a high C, definitely C leaning B, one of the highest C's. So I guess you'll have to be I'm assuming you're one or the other. So whatever you say is going to be the tiebreaker.
Come on.
Well, if it's between B and C, I'm gonna go B.
Okay.
I'm gonna go high on Mike. And here's the deal. I don't know exactly. I love Gideon. The fact that you mentioned the nullifier, unprecedented. How do you account for that?
Of course.
That's the hard part about modern Survivor. They keep throwing things out there that's like I can't fault Mike for getting blindsided and his alliance getting blindsided. They had the numbers. They were doing a great job. They got outmaneuvered by a bunch of toys, island toys. To be fair, very powerful things you have to accommodate for. But damn it, how do you accommodate for stuff that's unprecedented?
Right.
It's not like a final 3 with the schedule not lining up and being like, wait a minute, the days don't add up. How does this work? Or, the fire making, I don't hold it against Chrissy or Devin. In Mike's case, I don't hold it against him at all. It's like they had the numbers.
And Mike won fire.
He was in a pretty position within his alliance, the Goliaths. He had great connections across the board, in spite of the fact that, I want to point out, Snakeblood in the comments said, Mike should have been in my video, and that was the person who I talked about at the beginning of this conversation. You joked about Will. Mike was the guy, according to the jurors at the final tribal. He felt like it would be weird for him as a celebrity who didn't need the money. He's like, I don't need the money. I just want to win Survivor, but I don't want to win Survivor badly enough to take the money away from Nick or Angelina, who do need the money. So he's like, and he verbally admitted this at Final Tribal. It's not on the season. We don't see it. It's simply told in postseason stories from the players, the jurors. And they're like, that, like Gabby said she was very much interested in voting for Mike, but she couldn't after hearing that because he basically admitted, I don't really want to win that badly. It's hard to vote for somebody who, like, you think he played a great game and you wanted to vote for him going in, but then he sits there and is like, I don't think that I deserve to win this, like for reasons that are really beyond the game. And that is a player who could have won the game. I think in many ways, I think there's a good chance he does win the game. But the problem I had with not putting him in this 5 video that I made today, which I'm also, it got hit by a copyright claim, so I'm currently editing it. It's really janky, unfortunately, at number 4. If you guys watch it, you'll notice there's a massive editing error, and it's something I never have happen in my videos. And it's no thanks. It's all Sony. I had to point that out.
Screw Sony. I mean,
I put myself on mute, and I was like typing up a comment on the video, pinning it, basically explaining the situation. It really sucks. It's really bad. It's like either I give up all the money and I give it to Sony, or I cut out the parts that they want.
Don't let
me to
them
cut
have
out.
it.
And it was 6 seconds of Boston Rob talking to Alicia, and I'm like, yeah, it's not going to look good if you're watching it and you have no context, but I'm going to cut it out because it's like in the long run, it's like it is what it is. But yeah. I thought about including Mike White in this video about the worst final tribals. I decided not to because I wasn't grading all the players that I included or any of the players on post-season interviews. I went with strictly what we got on the screen. And It's hard for me to incorporate like secondhand or hearsay or post-season interviews or whatever. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like that was fair because I'm like, God, that's a rabbit hole that you go down and it's just there's no end to the stories you'll find and how you grade players based on that. So I tried to keep it consistent across the board. Yeah. That being said, I'm going to put this down right now. I put Mike, and you guys are going to laugh, I put Mike at S. Straight face. I'm not joking. I had Mike White at S tier. I don't know what Mike White does that's actually bad on this season. I actually think there's nothing he does wrong. He gets outplayed by unprecedented twists. And in spite of being outplayed and having lost the numbers in 2 straight rounds because of the idols and the advantages, he still manages to take control. He still manages to route the Davids. He splits the vote between Christian and Gabby, and knowing Christian might play the idol, and he puts it on Gabby, who created the idea of taking out Christian anyway. And then he has total control. And except for the fact that Nick goes on a winning spree, but he was willing to take Nick anyway because Nick wanted Mike in the finals. Maybe a misread from Nick's perspective because Mike, I think, stood a good chance to win if it wasn't for his final tribal performance, where he probably throws the game a little bit. I like Mike. I think in an alternate universe where Mike White doesn't have as much of a guilty conscience, he's a winner. And for me, that was enough to be like, good seeing being an S tier as a runner-up. Like, I don't know what more I could ask for from a runner-up game, besides, I guess, not getting outplayed by a bunch of idols and toys that he couldn't account for. Anyway, I have my S, so I'm going to go for B if you're going to go between B and C.
I mean,
and now
after that, why not put him in A? I mean, shoot, even it out.
Yeah, that's actually true. It could be an A.
I will say this: you guys have probably, because we've agreed on most of them, but there's definitely been ones that I'm like one off, or I think I've only ever been like one off with what you guys have said. But if there's one person 4 off, if there's one person that you guys have like convinced me in this short time to bump up or down, it's probably I'm probably now pretty firm with Mike. So you guys have definitely.
I would just say
I'm honestly good with an A. I mean, Mike is a good player. He's very
I would say
good.
Rewatch David Goliath. Pay attention to Mike and his gameplay. Maybe check out postseason if you ever want to. I did. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, strictly dedicated to reporting on how Mike White's underrated gameplay on this season and why he's an underrated player. And I'm like, you know what? He is very good. Nick's not bad either. Not take away from Nick. But Mike does a lot, and he's always in good positions, and he gets outplayed by unprecedented, the idol nullifier. And like, he's not perfect. He doesn't win. He does do does kind of, he has a very strange final tribal that, by all reports from the jury, it's like it was almost beyond gameplay. It was we've talked about this with other runner-ups where they like have these moments that sort of transcend the game, and he kind of costs them the game. Like if Phillip's story is to be believed, that's hard to gauge because it's almost like beyond gameplay. Mike had the win, I think would have won most likely, and then sort of said, I don't think I can accept this win because I don't want the money. Give the money to them, give them $500K, give me the title, like a Russell Hantz style kind of. It's just it doesn't work that way. So I don't know. Yeah. I said, you know what? I'm willing to give Mike an S. Why not?
Oh, wow.
Make that the hot take. So I'll put it. If you guys want to do A, I'll do A.
I'm good with A. Adam, are you okay with A?
I mean, if you guys want to put him in A, then that's the average. I'm still B leading C.
After this great explanation from Peridiam, I want to put him in an A.
Well, we can put him.
I think he's above average at the very least.
Okay.
Which I would say is at least an A. So.
Gavin.
To move on to Edge of Extinction, I think Gavin is probably one of the more underrated people here. I actually don't think Gavin had like too many flaws in his game. I think he, had pretty good awareness. I think, he had good jury management. I think he probably, the one thing maybe holding him back with this is like, I think he probably would have lost no matter who won the fire making challenge. I think Devins probably would have won, and obviously Chris did winning the fire making. So because of that, I probably can't put him in an A or an S. But to me, I'm comfortable putting Gavin in like B. I think he's maybe a pretty average runner-up. He didn't have any like big flashy moves. He didn't bring anything new to the game at a time when all these sort of small new strategies with advantages and everything was being played. But he did put himself in a position where, like, I don't think anyone ever really turned on him. I don't think anyone blindsided him or even considered blindsiding him, even though he was one of the front runners. I don't know if he was ever in the position of being like de facto front runner, but he was always up there as like, wow, Gavin has a great chance of winning, and no one, it seemed, to ever even thought about potentially getting him out. So I'd say B leaning A for me, for Gavin, but I'd say B if I had to pick a letter for him.
People constantly are like, Gavin's underrated, Gavin's underrated, Gavin's underrated. I mean, at a certain
That's because it's true.
At a certain point, it's just like maybe he's underrated because his game isn't that great. I mean, it's pretty passive.
Or the people are right.
You can say that, but there's a reason that he didn't win. And yeah, he didn't play. I mean, yeah, it's good to keep your cards close to your chest and play, passive to an extent, but he was just a definition of passive. I agree with the B rating, but there are way too many people who are like, oh, Gavin should have won, actually. Like, no, he shouldn't have.
Yeah, I think I feel like Gavin played a better game on a different season.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it was not a game good for Edge of Extinction as a twist. Because he would have lost to either of the two Edge of Extinction returning players by that end game. I guess it just depends on who comes back, if not Chris. Like, does he have a better chance? Because between Devins and Chris, it's clear he wouldn't have won against either of them. And he's between a rock and a hard place. And with the number of idols and between Chris and Devins having them, and then the immunity challenges he didn't take those, by storm. I know Chris had them and Rick had them. So it's like, he did play passively. He didn't have any votes, though. That's pretty impressive, considering it was such a chaotic season. No votes against him. I consider that a good thing. Also, maybe it means he was never much of a target because he was too passive. I would fluctuate between a B and an A because I don't know 100% what he does bad. Like, I just don't see... And I do think he's able to maneuver pretty well. He's never gets voted for. I like that. He had good connections with a lot of people. He still managed 4 votes. That's pretty high, and they're all from endgame players who, if this wasn't for the Edge, I think he would have gotten those votes anyway. On a regular season with 7 or 9 jurors, he gets 4 votes at least. Compare that with Chris. Like, Chris gets all the the early votes, but like Gavin never even met Reem. You know, like, that's ridiculous. How's he going to get a vote from her? Or Julie too, also. So like his game, I feel like, looks better on a different season. With the Edge of Extinction, he just played too old school for a modern variant, and that's why he's kind of just fades into the background. I could see him win another season of Survivor. If it was retroactively, he was retroactively cast, like in a previous year before Edge of Extinction. But as it is, I felt like he's between a B or an A. I could go with B though.
Okay. It sounds like B's the average for Gavin, which balances everything out pretty well. I feel like we have a good balance here. I'm interested where we put these next 2. It's interesting too because I think we're saving one of the more interesting ones for last because Natalie might
be the most interesting one.
Yeah,
one of them. She's like my top 3 most interesting to talk about. I had so much trouble deciding where to put her.
Yeah. Before we get to her, we have Dean with season 39. If you guys didn't know, they did have a 39. Dean is tough because for me, because I loved Dean. We had him on the show. He's such a great guy. And I was rooting for him from pretty much once he found whatever his first piece of his jewelry collection, as he calls it. I don't know, I just sort of gravitated towards him. Janet, for whatever reason, and Lauren, I didn't think was going to win. Tommy, I don't know. I kind of singled out Dean as the person I wanted to root for. With that being said, you know, he did play so. I think the only reason he obviously gets saved twice, right? If I remember correctly, in the pre-merge by someone else, and then in the post-merge, it really wasn't until like the final 2 episodes that he really started playing. And I do like the strategy. I mean, obviously Tony played a similar strategy the next season in Winners at War, where he started off pretty passive and then sort of kicked things into high gear at the right time. I think Dean, you know, picked the right strategy. It's just I think his timing was a little off. I think he waited too long of when to really start playing. He had a good awareness of the game, and he was very charismatic, and people liked him, and he gave people reasons to vote for him. It's just there was no chance he was going to beat Tommy at the final. I mean, he had all the jewelry, he had all those, an advantage, a nullifier, an idol, everything, but it's like he didn't use them. He didn't do anything with them. He waited too long. So to me, I would probably put Dean in I was thinking B or C, but I'm looking at some of the other Bs we have, like Sabrina and Gavin and Amanda and Twyla, and I don't think he's as good as those players.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to see him come back. Like I said, Dean is one of my favorite modern players of the last couple seasons. I mean, if you guys put him in B, I definitely wouldn't be opposed. But I'm probably leaning towards C for Dean.
I love the scene he has, when it's the first or second episode when he says somebody goes to Island of the Idols, and he's like, well, we're gonna have to split the vote, and he's with the entire tribe except for the person who left. They're like, oh, the target's that person, and then he's like, we're gonna have to split the vote, and then everyone else is standing around the person we're gonna split the vote on is here. Why would you say that? And he's like, oh shoot. It's a really small scene, but if you go back and rewatch it, it's really funny.
I forgot about that.
It's like, come on, Dean. Made me laugh.
I forgot about that scene. But were you thinking the same thing, Gideon? Were you thinking C or no?
I was thinking B.
Oh wow.
I like that he turned up his gameplay at the right time. Going into Final Tribal,
you think he turned up at the right time?
At the end,
I think he waited way too long.
I think it should have been a slower build, yes, but I think as hard as he did play, he should have started playing that hard there. It's just beforehand he probably should have built. I agree. But yeah, going into Finals Tribal, I thought he was going to win. I think he kind of choked. I think he kind of choked at final. He didn't have a very good Final Tribal. He kind of got tripped up on his own words, and that speaks to a lack of social game. But I think overall he's pretty solid. I'd say B. I thought he was average.
Okay.
Interesting.
I had him at C. I put him at C.
Y'all got me.
Yeah. No, hey, look, it's nice to hear somebody talk up Dean's game. I think he's not the worst ever. I think he does some good. He has a lot of good stuff going for him. But I don't think it's ever like high tier caliber, and I do think on some level it's a little bit below average for the rest of the runner-ups that we're looking at. So I don't know if I could compare him to Gavin or Sabrina, like we said, Amanda Kimmel. I think that he doesn't compare. Maybe, I don't even know, maybe Twilight will go lower after looking at all this, but keep her at B. Yeah, he sort of reminds me, he's like the poster boy for a New School Survivor, I feel, in some weird way, with wearing the bling. He's got all the bling, and that is like...
And his name is DK Chillin'.
Right, sure, yeah, and like, he works for Google. That's pretty different, that's unique. And actually, you'll work for Google too, or was it Facebook? Is that the same thing? I don't know. But yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Do they? They own it. Yeah, they own Facebook, something like that.
Or no, Facebook owns Instagram, or Google owns Instagram. It's one of those. But I think you'll work for Google too.
I feel like if Dean, I don't know who Dean like wins in this situation, and I don't trust Dean's tactical gameplay very much. I love Tommy's Final Tribal. I've seen some people crap on it, but I actually think it's a really good one. He really does a good job at playing against Dean. He knows Nora is out of the running, and he knows that like all he has to do is convince. He gets Dean to kind of like hang himself, where he's like, "Yeah, you did all this stuff, but what did you do with everything? Like, what was the points? Like, yeah, you found all these idols or these advantages, but what were you doing with that to like accelerate your game?" And it's like Dean can't really talk about it very well. He can't explain himself very well because I don't know if he knows exactly what he's really doing. I love that he talks about the goat army, and I'm kind of like, I wonder if there was some poetic like undertones there. The what is that, foreshadowing Dean losing at the end because he's like ripping on the other players for being goats. But I'm like, Dean's final three he was trying to get was himself, Tommy, and Dan. And I don't think Dean wins. And I don't know who he beats in the final three. He doesn't beat, I doubt he beats Janet. I don't think he beats Elaine. Dan gets pulled. He doesn't beat Tommy. I'm like, I think Dean kind of was a goat.
Lauren.
Yeah, it doesn't beat Lauren. Lauren, it was Tommy or Lauren. I'm like, I think Dean's a goat. I think Dean's ripping on him, and the editors are making a joke out of this. And the situational irony is that Dean is the goat himself, ripping on the other goats in the game, calling them the goat army, getting in line, marching to the beat of their own leader, whoever they were. I'm like, but he's actually doing that with Tommy. That's the irony of it's the tragedy of Dean's storyline. So I'm not as high on Dean personally, and I was really happy to see Tommy win. I really liked...
I'm still glad Tommy won. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I love seeing somebody win in a modern season that is just filled with these advantages, filled with just all this new school stuff, which isn't bad. I don't actually rip on it, but to see it like possibly done and to do it well, he got 8 out of 10 votes. He didn't even go to the fire making challenge, which is like usually the GOAT role. It seems that's what it's becoming. Like you get pulled to Final Tribal. To see somebody show like, no, that's actually a strategic thing you can do. You can get taken, and it's actually a boon. It's a benefit to your game. And let me explain why. It's how you spin it. It's how you sell it. And if you can do it believably and not make the jury laugh at you, which probably is the case for most of these people who get taken, I say more credit to it. So, yeah, I think Dean had the resume with all the different bullet points for why he should be a winner, but he couldn't really make it add up to anything worthwhile compared to the people he was sitting next to. And I don't think there was a single final three or grouping that he could do that with, based on what we've heard between Elaine and Janet and Lauren and obviously Tommy. So, yeah, I put him at C. Maybe I should go lower, but I have him at C. I think he's decent.
Okay.
Decent, DC.
So we got one left. Our most recent runner-up. We got Natalie Anderson. Yeah, I agree. I think we saved the best for last. I think she really is the most interesting one, because
hard.
obviously there's the argument of she battled back. She came in second place in the most stacked season in Survivor history by far, in my opinion. But then you have the argument that she was the first one voted out, and I probably tend to lean more towards the latter argument, and that I don't give too much credit to her battling back, simply because of the fact that she had a huge advantage in being the first person voted out, and that she had way more time than everyone else to accumulate fire tokens and whatnot. So to me, with Natalie, it was either going to be, I don't think she did as good of a finale as Chris did. If she had gone up against either Tony or Sarah, it probably would have been Tony in fire and won, and then lost to Sarah, I probably would bump her up to B, but I'm going to put her in C.
Yeah, I hate to harp on her too,
That's right,
but
Natalie.
I can't respect her game. Voted out first. If you get voted out first, it is your own fault. You were voted out first, so cry about it. And then she's there and she's getting fire tokens because she's been there the longest. She doesn't get back in when Tyson does, and then she keeps on collecting the fire tokens, and she gets all these advantages in the challenge, and she still almost loses. And then when she does get back in, she just so obviously is trying to paint a target on Tony. It's almost laughable, me watching her just try to paint the target on Tony, saying, "Oh, like everybody thinks you're gonna win." She almost did it too obviously, like, because even Sarah was like, "Oh, well, whatever. Like, of course you're gonna say that." So I don't like that part of her game. The jury said it in interviews, like we would have never let the person from the edge win anyways. It's argued that Michelle.
Have you ever asked Tyson why he voted for her?
No.
I know why.
Golly, that's maybe something I should have asked. That's maybe something I should ask.
You know why, Peridiam?
Wasn't it because of the idol?
See, that's what I thought.
I think it was the peanut butter.
Oh, is that not why?
Yeah.
Was that what you thought too, Adam?
No, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah.
I think he said postseason it was because she gave him enough tokens to buy an idol in the event that he made it back, and he really, really appreciated. Like, she was the only one who was willing to do that for him.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's how she got one vote. She was going to get Jeremy's no matter what.
She was going to get Parvati's.
So the only one she really earned was Ethan's, and I think she only got his because Ethan probably maybe had the toughest time on the edge. So whoever came, he appreciated her coming back.
Well, I love Ethan. But all due respect, I don't care. Who came back from the edge? They didn't deserve to win, and so I agree with C. That doesn't mean she's a terrible player. It's just this game, she didn't play a good game, and frankly, all of America was pretty much rooting against her because Tony played such a beautiful game. And I mean, I was pissed off when she got back and won
does she get back without her advantages? Without her?
No, because she got tripped up with the advantages and still almost lost to who? Yule? Wendell almost got back in.
I thought it was Rob was down there, wasn't it?
In the final
not as much.
Maybe I'm thinking of the first one.
He was in it, but it would have been harder. I think it was Wendell in the second one who was playing spoiler to Natalie.
Yeah, I think it was Wendell and Natalie in the last one, and then I think it was Tyson and Rob. What we saw.
Yeah, Tyson and Rob was the oh my gosh, yeah, that was way better of a challenge than the last one, but
yeah.
Although from what I heard, it was actually Tyson was way ahead of everyone. They actually made it look closer than it was.
I believe I could tell they were making it look closer, but I was still. I mean, they fooled me because I'm such a Boston Rob fan. I was just crying.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. I have a question. If let's say if Chris Underwood loses to Gavin or whoever, how would you put? Where would you rank his game? I'm just wondering. I know it's a weird question to ask. I've never really
Loses to
thought about it.
Gavin?
Let's say Chris Underwood is a runner-up, just like Natalie Anderson's a runner-up. Where does Chris rank as the third boot? Where do you stick him?
B.
Because I'm
I'll
like,
put him at B because he actually beat. I mean, Natalie should have studied up on Survivor, man. Like, Chris played the game you're supposed to play if you come back from the edge.
right. I feel like the Edge of Extinction is such a curveball when it comes to analyzing these runner-ups, and we don't have to ask that question for Chris Underwood because he won. But I'm like, how do you judge a first boot? And I'm like, when I was on Twitch last week, and they all put her a D, and it was like a very easy D for them. And I was like, okay, all right, I hear you guys. I was between like a C, but I was like maybe even a B as an average. But it's like she got first boot, but I know that they targeted duos. But it's still not, it's still like her fault to some extent that she gets taken out. I'm not going to say it isn't, but it's like first boot, for me being a first boot isn't, unless you're like truly asking for it, it's not the worst thing in the world, especially in a returning player season where pregame comes into effect. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to hold it against her like to the end of the world or whatever. It happened. Somebody was going to get it. I don't remember exactly how the dynamics even played out. I don't know if it was like Parvy and Rob did that. So like if you guys want to put her in C, I'm totally cool with that. But I'm like, okay, she comes back after finessing the edge on a physical level. I don't know if she did a great job on a social level from what I've heard. Her social game was apparently left people wanting more. We didn't see a lot of it, but that's what the stories have come out as. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound great. Seems like less of what not the Chris Underwood story of like how he was this great guy, really friendly, provided food, Natalie, of course they didn't have fire tokens, so it's like less competitive. Right. Natalie's is such a unique story as a runner-up, and it really like subverts most of the season that it's hard for me to give her. Like, does she do an okay job when she comes back? It's like it's not the best. Like, I think she misbelieves when I think Michelle tells her that Tony is an idol or something, and she doesn't believe her. I think that's what happened. One of the two of them didn't believe it. I think it was Natalie. I think it was Natalie. So I'm just like, okay, that's not a good read. And also,
Sarah didn't believe that. Natalie
was it Sarah? Okay, it was Sarah. Yeah, it was Sarah. No, it was the opposite. I got somebody mixed up. I'm like, the biggest mistake she makes is not going to the fire making against Tony. Yeah, I think she stands a decent shot. Not that I think she still loses to Sarah, maybe, but I think she gets a couple more votes. She loses 12-4. That's a pretty wide gap. That's a huge jury. I know Rob was like, I would have voted for you if you took Tony out. I'm like, maybe Amber would have voted for her. I don't know. That's 6 votes. Who's to say she's like not tying it, but I don't know. I'm willing to stick it at a C and call it a day with her. It's just like and then it's like the Edge brings on the whole like, can you vote for the Edge or not? Because they're like every person on the jury was in her position, and if they don't vote for her, they're invalidating their own winning potential. So it's like a weird mind warp of logic that it's hard to gauge as a runner-up on with an Edge of Extinction. I hope it never comes back. I really do.
Well, then there's a thing like with Chris is that like obviously, I know you guys have heard this argument like 100 times, but Chris obviously was spending all of his time with the people that were then going to vote for him as opposed to
good strategy
with the people in the game.
That's like Survivor 101, and there's like no chance of you losing at that point. So it's not like, Natalie, I've heard you like really rub people the wrong way, or you like didn't help advocate for people to want to. They weren't cheering for you, and they are like, that's pretty crazy that like they weren't cheering for the Edge returnee when it's like they're basically not cheering for themselves by not cheering for her, because they would have been in her position had they come back, and they were hoping that everyone else would cheer for them. So you can't be like, well, I'm not going to cheer for Natalie, because it's like not cheering for yourself in a way. So they're like, we're never going to let an Edge returnee win. And I remember Adam talked about this postseason. He's like, the logic was really difficult to wrap your head around. It's like you're playing a game to win. It's like it's almost hypocritical. It's like hypocritical to be like, I'm not going to let Natalie win, but please let me win. Anyway, I put her between a B and a C. Yeah, like a C.5. It's weird. Yeah, and that's it.
I guess that is our. I wanted to ask. We don't have to go super in depth with this question, but if you guys had to bump down one S tier to the A, who would your pick be? For me, it would have to be one of those first two, either Ozzy or Russell.
I'd probably pick Ozzy.
Oh, that's so hard because I'd have neither in the S tier. I'd neither.
Yeah.
And I can make good cases for both of them not being an S tier.
Mm-hmm.
Ozzy, my gut says Ozzy. My gut says Ozzy. Take Ozzy down.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'd say. Yeah. Gideon?
Because we're talking Russell and Samoa, who like.
Okay.
Yeah, Russell and Samoa, he was okay. Like he could win, and it's just he really botched a lead. He had such a lead on that game, and he just blew it. Not the same thing with Ozzy. I don't know. It's so weird. That's a tough question though.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So there's our final tier rank. Pretty good balance.
I don't feel like people will hate us too much for this.
Trying to think of what are like.
I hate myself. No.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood here.
I'm trying to think if we have any that are just like what? I mean, maybe.
Maybe Twyla stands out a little. I don't know if she should be as a B, but or maybe Colby.
Twyla's low-key underrated.
Is Colby an A?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just asking myself out loud. I had Colby at a B in my personal one, but I'm like, yeah, I could see him being an A, I guess. It takes Keith.
I mean, honestly, Ozzy and S might be the hottest take, but
I put him in. Actually, you're right. I had Ozzy in B. I had him below Russell, so I would put him in B. I would take him down.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, guys. There's our list. There's our tier rank. Thanks for everyone. After 2 hours and 11 minutes, we're still retaining 25 viewers. So thanks everyone for sticking through. It's been fun. Can't wait for whatever we tier rank next. We're trying to think of as many things as we can, but leave comments. Tell us what you guys agree, disagree with.
Yes. If you guys disagree. If you guys disagree strongly, please discuss that in the comments and leave multiple comments on how much you hate us. Just go ahead, bring them in.
We want all the smoke.
We want it.
Our TikTok and our Discord. I'm assuming every Survivor fan already follows Peridiam, but if you don't, check them out on YouTube. Got any cool one? You just released a video today. Do you know what your one for next week is?
Yeah. It's a weird one. It's talking about. I went over a while ago. I talked about the best puzzles and the most difficult puzzles in Survivor, and I talked about the word scramble being the most difficult. So I'm looking at 10 times players utterly just fail at the word scramble, and it gets pretty bad. Like it's painful, and it's also funny. So I'm putting together 10 of those.
Yeah, that seems like a funny video. I'm excited for that.
I'm also covering the 5 worst final tribals on the same vein as the last few videos I've done, but from winners, from people who found success despite their terrible performance. So that'll be an interesting one to see. I had trouble figuring out a couple of them. It's really splitting hairs. And at some point in the near future, we're going to have Challenge Hack 6.0.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Those do well.
Awesome.
We love the challenge hacks. Yes.
Yeah.
Those are good. Those are nice.
The algorithm gobbles them up. So that's that.
Yeah.
That's how social media works, man.
Right. Yeah. Just playing the game. That's all. Hey, look, it's Survivor. It's legit. It's how it works.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for
Make sure to
watching.
subscribe.
Hope
Hit
you
the
enjoyed.
subscribe button and
Thank
ring
you guys
the
for
bell.
having me, too. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Peridiam. We love you.